Hi, it's Charlie and welcome to Monday's video. I just wanted to start off by covering off, does time give you an edge in trading? Now, so what I mean by that is the length of time that you've been trading. Does that obviously give you an edge? Well, of course it does, because the longer you've been trading, the more experience you grow. Having said that, and I always say, and Kim will be the same, that it's time that takes time to really become proficient as a trader. But there is a slight caveat to that, because although yes, that's absolutely true, and all traders, is going to take them time to learn and to become proficient, but don't just think that just time in the market is enough in order to be a good trader. Because, for example, my mum is not a very good driver, and yet she's probably been driving for probably what nowadays, probably about 40 to 50 years she's been driving, and she's not a very good driver. And we could also look at lots of other drivers on the road and say, well, actually, yeah, just because you've been doing something for a long time doesn't necessarily mean automatically you're good at it. Rachel burns a lot of food. She's been cooking for years, and yet she still has this ability to overcook stuff. We won't tell her that, but you can see where I'm going with this. So just because you've been in the market for several years doesn't automatically qualify you to becoming a great trader. So you do need to obviously apply yourself as well as a trader. Yes, you need the time, but it's the application during that time that you've been trading which is important. Much like a driver, if a driver just passes their test and then just goes off, then they're not necessarily going to improve, or they might at least plateau and actually start to deteriorate over time. Because if they're not doing continued improvement, so to speak, and we see plenty of drivers on the road like that. And it's just the same with trading. We've got to constantly be aware of what we're doing, how we're applying ourselves, and ensuring that we are growing as traders, and at least know that we're on the right path. Because otherwise we could be in the markets for 5 years and still never making any money. So just thought I'd leave that thought with you today, because people think it's just about time, and it's not just time. I think we get there. Right, okay, let's have a look at this. So I've got the volatility index up. So this is the VIX, and obviously, as we can see, back in October, the VIX really spiked up when we had the big moves down in October, and obviously it's been spiking up again of late. So let's now go to the indices and have a look, see what they've been up to, because obviously it was quite a decent move down last week. It caught me, I must admit, only in that it caught me off guard, in that I wasn't really focused on getting into those markets last week, and on the short side. I had some points on a couple of occasions last week on the short side, but I wasn't thoroughly thinking about bigger moves to the downside. So it caught me out there in that I haven't been positioned to be on the short side on a swing basis. So I've missed out on some of those swing points there. But obviously we've come down to the daily 50 period moving averages now on these markets. I'm just checking on eSignal off screen as I'm talking here. And this morning in the futures we're having a bit of a bounce in the futures, but obviously anything could change by later on. Momentum's pretty good to the downside, but it is a first test of this daily 50. So even if we were to come through it again today and come a bit lower, I'd still be looking for at least some sort of bounce. If we don't get the bounce today, then maybe it would come back again tomorrow. But in the main, what does this actually mean? What are we looking at here? Let's go out to some higher time frames and put us back into perspective. Remember this monthly chart, which I would have been showing you probably a couple of months ago back in October. And remember, I was alluding to this lower trend line, which should create support, which it did indeed do. Now, one thing I would say is that if we were to come back down to this trend line, then the possibility starts to increase that we actually go for a push below it. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. This could just be a little bit of intra-month selling, and by the end of the month we're going back up again. Not necessarily to new highs, but at least we're tracing and going back up again. So just for your background information, if we were to get back down to this trend line, then just watch the price action, because if we then start to break that, then there could be a much larger move down to the downside. I say much larger, but yeah, a decent correction, so to speak. But it's still got quite a way to go to even get down to that trend line anyways, we can see there. So for now, this is, oops, let's put this onto a daily chart. So for now, just a bit of a move down last week. We're into support zone. We could see a bit of a bounce here from the daily 50s, but if we were to come all the way down to that trend line, then we're certainly going to be very interested to see how the price action moves around there. That's about it. I'm going to keep it nice and short this week, and so stay safe. Volatility's picking up, great for day trading, and so just means there's a few more opportunities, and that'll come across. This week's going to be interesting with FOMC on Wednesday, so all eyes are on FOMC, and so we'll see if they change their wording, which I suspect they're going to, and then we'll see if the likes of this dollar yen is going to pick back up again from there. So as we can see, it's just been going sideways, had a bit of a correction, going sideways for several days now. So which way are we going to go, basically, up or down? And that's the question. It's the same sort of thing with the euro dollar. Been going, we can see, not necessarily, sort of sideways actually. It had a bit of a rally. We can see the highs here. If it wants to come up and break those highs, then we're probably going to get a bit of an upside move, obviously, or the alternative is we start to roll back over. But at the moment, it's trying to go higher, so we'll see. And with the pound dollar, similar sort of thing. Got these highs all around 157.50. It's having a bit of a down day today, so far at least anyway, but if it was to come back up to that 157.40 to 50 area and break, then we could get a half decent move at least to 158. I shall leave that with you. Have a good week. Back on Friday.